Nikola Tesla was not merely an inventor of electrical machines. He was a visionary who perceived the universe itself as a living, vibrating organism governed by frequency and resonance. To him, energy was not something created but something accessed, tuned into, and transmitted, much like a radio that needs to be tuned into the radio frequency of a specific radio channel. Tesla's statement, "If you want to find the secrets of the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration," was not poetic metaphor. It was a direct reflection of his worldview and the foundation upon which he built his technological and spiritual insights. He believed that all matter, consciousness, and life were different manifestations of the same underlying vibrational field, a universal resonance that connected everything, from the smallest atom to the largest star. From his early childhood in Smiljan, Tesla showed signs of what he himself called visions. He described flashes of light in which complete inventions appeared to him fully formed. In one famous instance, he claimed to have conceived the entire alternating current motor while walking in a park, reciting lines from Goethe's Faust, when suddenly a brilliant light filled his mind and he saw the motor rotating in perfect clarity. For Tesla, these insights did not emerge through logical deduction, but through what he called instinctual communication with the universe. He compared his mind to a receiver picking up signals from a higher dimension of intelligence, a concept strikingly similar to what mystics refer to as the Akashic records or the cosmic mind. Tesla believed that the human brain was a transmitter and receiver of energy, functioning much like a radio. In his later interviews, he explained that all human thoughts, emotions, and creative ideas were forms of energy that existed in the ether and could be tuned into by a sufficiently sensitive consciousness. This idea, which at the time seemed mystical or even delusional to his contemporaries, has found surprising parallels in modern physics. The discovery of the quantum field, a field that permeates all space and from which all particles arise, bears resemblance to Tesla's vision of an interconnected energy continuum. In Tesla's worldview, every thought and every vibration left an imprint on this field, echoing the ancient idea that nothing is ever truly lost, merely transformed into another frequency. In his experiments with electrical resonance, Tesla was able to demonstrate physical manifestations of this principle. At his Colorado Springs laboratory in 1899, he constructed enormous coils capable of producing electrical discharges up to 30 meters long. These coils operated on the principle of resonance, where an electrical circuit tuned to a specific frequency could store and release enormous amounts of energy. Tesla observed that when the natural frequency of his coil matched that of the Earth's own electrical field, the energy amplified dramatically. Resonance could magnify energy far beyond the input provided, simply by aligning with the natural frequency of the medium. This principle became the cornerstone of Tesla's dream for global wireless power transmission. He envisioned a network of energy towers that could draw power from the Earth's natural electrical charge and distribute it wirelessly across the planet. The most famous attempt to realize this vision was the Wardenclyffe Tower in Shoreham, New York. The tower, completed around 1901, was designed to resonate with both the Earth and the ionosphere, a layer of the atmosphere capable of conducting electrical energy. Tesla planned to use it not just for communication, but to transmit usable power without wires, lighting up homes, ships, and cities anywhere on Earth. In a sense, Tesla viewed the planet as a gigantic electrical conductor floating in space, its crust, atmosphere, and magnetic field all functioning as parts of a resonant circuit. When properly tuned, he believed, the Earth could become a limitless source of clean, free energy. In a 1904 interview, he said, "Throughout space there is energy. Is this energy static or kinetic? If static, our hopes are in vain. If kinetic, and this we know it is, then it is a mere question of time when men will succeed in attaching their machinery to the very wheelwork of nature. Tesla was convinced that the universe was filled with a dynamic sea of energy that could be tapped directly once we understood its resonant frequencies. To demonstrate his theory, Tesla built small-scale models in which he successfully transmitted power wirelessly across his laboratory. One famous demonstration involved lighting up a series of bulbs placed dozens of feet away from his generator, without any wires connecting them. The bulbs glowed brilliantly, powered entirely through the air by resonant electromagnetic waves. He also constructed a high-frequency oscillator capable of transmitting power through the Earth's crust itself. Observers noted that Tesla could light lamps placed far away simply by tuning the transmitter and receiver circuits to the same frequency, proving that resonance could transmit energy efficiently through the ground. Modern science has partially confirmed aspects of Tesla's theory through the study of Schumann resonances, the electromagnetic waves that resonate between the Earth's surface and the ionosphere. Discovered in 1952, these resonances occur at extremely low frequencies, around 7.83 Hz, and are often referred to as the Earth's heartbeat. Tesla had predicted this frequency decades earlier, describing it as the natural electrical vibration of the planet. Modern experiments showed that this resonance is vital for life on Earth, influencing human brain waves, circadian rhythms, and biological well-being. When humans are removed from natural electromagnetic resonance, such as astronauts in space, they experience disorientation and insomnia, conditions that are alleviated when artificial Schumann frequencies are reintroduced. This discovery lends powerful support to Tesla's belief that all life is attuned to the Earth's electromagnetic field, and that resonance is the key to understanding both physics and consciousness. Tesla's exploration of resonance went beyond energy transmission. It was a metaphysical quest. He once remarked, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtain knowledge, strength, and inspiration." This statement resonates with ancient Eastern philosophies that describe the Akasha as a universal field of consciousness, storing all information and experiences. In Hindu and Buddhist cosmology, the Akasha is not an abstraction but the subtle ether that pervades everything, the medium through which light, sound, and thought propagate. Tesla's conception of a cosmic information field was a modern articulation of this timeless idea. He saw the human mind as a tuning device capable of accessing this cosmic library through resonance. Genius, for Tesla, was not a matter of intellect alone, but of attunement. According to the late Edgar Cayce, the Akashic records can be seen as the universe's supercomputer, a central storage facility of all information. Collectively, the Akashic records are a field of energy that holds the past, present, and future knowledge of all things, and it manifests everywhere at once. Within this all-encompassing field are individual energy fields for each beam that are immensely vast in their own right. The Akashic records are just like the modern Wi-Fi network. We can't see the Wi-Fi internet, yet we know it's everywhere around us. It's something invisible, yet if you access it, you can reach limitless information. Pretty much anywhere on the planet that has internet access, you can find these hidden secret patterns and codes that are floating around us. It's the same thing with the Akashic records. You only need to tune your consciousness into the right frequency to be able to access this information. The term Akashic Records was first coined in 1883 by the author Alfred Percy Sennett in his book Esoteric Buddhism. In it, he describes how, according to Eastern philosophy, universal records physically exist in the ever-pervasive realm known as the Akasha, which can be accessed by enlightened individuals. But what is interesting is that references to the Akashic records can be found thousands of years earlier in the ancient Hindu scriptures. The Mahabharata and the Puranas all mention tales about this mystical, famous Vedic sage known as Narada. Tradition has it that Narada transcended consciousness to gather knowledge and give teachings of great wisdom. Narada had access to some kind of essential knowledge that is in the fabric of the divine cosmic order. He had this mystical ability to tap into the universal knowledge directly from the Akasha. Akasha is actually a Sanskrit word, which means ether in both the elemental and metaphysical sense. But is there any proof of the existence of the Akashic records? Well, we are limited by modern-day understandings of what qualifies as proof. Anything that cannot be perceived by physical senses or something that is foremost impossible to perceive is hard to validate in its existence. The truth is, there really is no way to prove, in the material way that we currently define proof, the existence of the Akashic records because it cannot be seen or touched or heard or otherwise measured. Like Nikola Tesla said, the day science begins to study non-physical phenomena, it will make more progress in one decade than in all the previous centuries of its existence. But even so, after years of studying the nature of electromagnetic and gravitational fields, celebrated futurist and Nobel Prize nominee, Dr. Ervin Laszlo, announced that he has found evidence of the A, or Akashic field. Dr. Laszlo took work from the discovery of the quantum zero-point energy, which is a radiation field that exists all around us that we can't perceive, but we can detect it indirectly. The existence of the quantum zero-point energy is very solid theoretically, and it was first discovered by Albert Einstein. So we know that the zero-point energy exists, and it carries a lot of information about the universe in it. Dr. Laszlo proposed that this didn't carry just a physical information about the physics of the universe, but also it contained intellectual information. According to theoretical physicists, zero-point energy is an all-pervasive sea of quantum energy waves that are invisible but exist throughout the universe. The fabric of space itself is made of energy and information. And the way this information propagates through the universe is through waves. We call these quantum waves. And so the Akashic field is made of quantum waves that are common to all intelligent life. This means that all human brains, extraterrestrial brains, and any sort of otherworldly beings also have the ability to tap into these quantum waves receiving information. This idea of an intelligent informational field that we can access with our consciousness is not pseudoscience. It's not superstition. It is a basic fact that our scientists confirm is actually true. Nearly 2 decades prior to Laszlo's discovery, Nobel Prize-winning physicist Richard Feynman published his groundbreaking work in quantum physics, The Strange Theory of Light and Matter. In it, he explored the idea that electrons in our brains can be activated and informed by quantum waves, affecting our thoughts and subconscious. Richard Feynman talked about the quantum entanglement theory and the idea that you could have subatomic particles at any distance whatsoever, and they could affect each other, where information can be sent instantaneously. The human brain is full of electrical activity that creates radiation that a very sensitive radio receiver could pick up in other minds. Other places would also be able to send such waves. Feynman found from the idea of a quantum field of information that even an electron moving in our brains could be receiving radio signals from the past, but to compensate, it must also receive waves from the future. This means that every electron in our brain is actually a receiver. After all, Nikola Tesla was right when he said, "My brain is only a receiver. In the universe, there is a core from which we obtained knowledge, strength, and inspiration. I have not penetrated into the secrets of this core, but I know that it exists." We now know that information could traverse to any part of the universe instantaneously. This could mean that intelligent civilizations could send complex information to us by quantum wave propagation or other means. They could very much be nudging society along through people having apparent visions, which could be nothing more complex than a radio broadcast, some sort of thought transference through the Akashic record. Stories about people who access the Akashic records can be found not only in our ancient past, but even in our recent history. In 1923, the 12-year-old Bulgarian peasant girl called Vangelia was playing in a field when a tornado carried her off into the air. Later, she was found by her parents barely alive. She was very frightened, and strangely, her eyes were covered with sand and dust, and she was unable to open them because of the pain. After 3 unsuccessful operations, she remained completely blind. After the accident, slowly, Vangelia developed a striking ability to predict the future and began making accurate revelations for the local population. By the 1980s, the blind prophet who adopted the name Baba Vanga, which means Grandmother Vanga in Bulgarian, had given thousands of accurate predictions and gained a reputation as the Nostradamus of the Balkans. Baba Vanga said that she could see everything in her mind's eye, and when she would look at a person, she said that she could see their whole life in its totality, from birth through their life until death, as if she was watching a movie. She was a study of many Bulgarian and Soviet scientists who scientifically started testing her and interviewing her and the people that she read. Some of the most prominent politicians and leaders of the Eastern Bloc traveled to her village just to receive her readings. Her predictions were extremely accurate, which tells us that the ability to retrieve information beyond this earth plane has nothing to do with our 5 senses. In fact, when she became blind, it is as if her other senses developed to receive messages and information about the past, present, and future. She predicted the day of Stalin's death, for which she spent a short time in prison being questioned by the Soviets. She predicted the tragedy of the nuclear explosion in Chernobyl, the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, the sinking of the Russian submarine Kursk, and many other world-changing events. We must remember, these amazing things are coming from someone who was born a peasant, who has not read books, had a slight, maybe functional literacy, and had no access to televisions or any modern source of information. You have to wonder, where was she getting this information from? Is it possible she was able to access some kind of knowledge that's out there that normal people cannot access? Throughout the centuries, there have been oracles and prophets that have claimed contact with otherworldly realms as a source of their inspiration. One of the people who clearly could access the Akashic records was Michel de Nostradam, better known as Nostradamus. He predicted many things, including the Great Fire of London in 1666, the French Revolution, and even the rise of power of Adolf Hitler. He claimed that he succeeded by using methods found in ancient Greek oracles, Christian mysticism, and even in the Kabbalah. Nostradamus was one of the first people recorded to access the Akashic records. He tries in his labor narratives to explain a divine state where everything is happening, not in a linear sense, but all happening at once. Past, present, and future concepts bind into one thing. Most prophets say that they are tapping into another reality beyond this earthly existence. So, potentially, they could be tapping into a layer of reality that is shared by otherworldly beings like extraterrestrials, for example. Perhaps the Akashic records are all around us. It's simply that our brains are not evolved yet to see them. Just like Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein also claimed he received the ideas of his greatest inventions from some outside source. Einstein claimed he came up with a theory of relativity in an instance of a second. He said the idea came into his mind out of nowhere. Another thing which leads me to believe that the Akashic records are influencing the collective consciousness of humanity is the fact that some of the greatest inventions are received simultaneously by different people around the globe, which weren't connected in any way. Columbia University sociologists William Ogburn and Dorothy Thomas published a paper in the Academy of Political Science journal entitled, "Are Inventions Inevitable?" In it, they cite 148 instances of simultaneous inventions where two or more individuals, each operating without knowledge of the other's work, came up with the same groundbreaking innovation or theory at the same time. How is it that people in different continents, different cultures can come up with the same idea at almost exactly the same time? Einstein's discovery of relativity was preceded almost simultaneously by a theoretical physicist, a Frenchman named Poincare. Perhaps as time passes and our collective consciousness evolves into a new level of perception, vital knowledge is being released into the collective field of information, and millions of people are able to receive it and express it. There are many other individuals who did extraordinary exploring of the Akashic records, including Suzhou Jin, a man from China, who discovered and describes anyone's life history only by knowing the person's first name. According to spiritual beliefs, the Akashic record is also known as the Book of Life for an individual, and it contains every thought, word, intent, emotion, and deed of that soul from the time it leaves its point of origin until the end of time. This field also holds the deepest meanings and connections between each piece of information, plus the soul's purpose, callings, talents, and lessons. Information in each soul's record becomes available through a certain unique frequency, like a fingerprint encoded into the energies of the universe. The Akashic records are the energetic recordings of your soul's journey since your beginning. It is everything about you, all around you, and within you. It is everything you are, have been, and the potentials you are yet to become. It is a special field of energy that permeates your entire being. It is not something separate from you, but an integral part of you. Another ancient being who supposedly accessed the Akashic records was the ancient Egyptian deity known as Thoth. The incredible civilization of ancient Egypt lasted longer than the entire span of what we have come to accept as recorded history, which is only a few thousand years. Some believe that the ancient Egyptians inherited some of the lost knowledge of the civilization of Atlantis after its destruction. It's believed that the few survivors of this once extremely technologically advanced civilization found refuge in the lands of the Nile Delta. During these millennia, the ancient Egyptians developed not only technologically, but also spiritually as they were introduced to a multitude of esoteric practices that we are still unraveling the meaning of. The fascinating spiritual, esoteric, and occult knowledge of the ancient Egyptians far surpasses the mere knowledge we have today. It is believed that a large portion of this knowledge was actually channeled and given by the ancient Egyptians by an incredible being, unknown whether human, God, or something completely different. This being was called Thoth by the Egyptians, Hermes Trismegistus by the Greeks, and later, Mercury by the Romans. This mysterious entity was known to have lived in ancient Egypt before he was revered as a god, and there are many stories about him, claiming he could access higher realms of consciousness and derive universal information from the Akashic field. He was the first great Egyptian philosopher and founder of the ancient mystery schools. Usually portrayed in human form with the head of the sacred ibis bird, Thoth was known to Egyptians as both the scribe and arbiter of the gods, an entity who kept a record of events in the heavens and for all humanity, and used his immense knowledge to pass judgment on disputes between deities. In order to create his records, it is said that Thoth invented writing, creating the earliest hieroglyphs. In fact, according to Egyptian myth, Thoth actually wrote down all of his knowledge on tens of thousands of manuscripts, recording the earliest foundations of science, law, art, philosophy, math, and magic. But out of all of his works, one stood out above the rest. It's believed that the Book of Thoth reveals the secrets of the universe and the process achieved through awakening certain areas of the brain which are inactive for the average person. The Book of Thoth contains secret knowledge of the incarnation process, the multi-dimensional structure of the universe, and offers thousands of spiritual and esoteric rituals which could have a powerful impact on the physical world. There are also a lot of dark and dangerous practices. In fact, it's believed that the powerful curse on Tutankhamun's tomb was created using the knowledge of the Book of Thoth. George Herbert, the man who financed the excavation of King Tut's tomb, was the first to succumb to the curse. On the 5th of April 1923, he accidentally tore open a mosquito bite while shaving and ended up dying of blood poisoning shortly after. 1 month later, on the 16th of May 1923, George J. Gould Premfernt, who also visited the tomb, died after developing a mysterious fever. A month after his death, the Prince of Egypt, Ali Camel Fahmy Bey, who was another visitor to the tomb, was shot dead by his own wife. Hugh Evelyn White, who is an archaeologist participating in the excavation, hung himself in 1924, leaving a chilling message reading, "I have succumbed to a curse which forces me to disappear." The same year, Sir Archibald Douglas Reed, the man who X-rayed Tutankhamun's mummy, died from a mysterious illness. Richard Bethel, who is George Herbert's secretary and accompanying his boss on the opening of King Tut's tomb, lasted a bit longer and died smothered under suspicious circumstances in 1929. A year later, his father killed himself. All in all, there were at least 11 deaths attributed to the curse. This should give you an idea of how powerful the Book of Thoth and the secret methods described there actually are. In the wrong hands, the Book of Thoth could be very dangerous, and for this reason, only Egyptian priests with special training were allowed access to Thoth's sacred knowledge, together with the pharaohs. It's been said that Thoth acquired all this knowledge through the practice of channeling, which is a psychic connection to beings from the higher dimensions which exist in the all-encompassing informational field. We are living in a field of energy and information which is all around us, and yet it's imperceivable by the human eye. To achieve this expanded state of consciousness, channelers and mediums usually meditate, trying to break free of the worldly influences and tune into higher consciousness. They may seek connection to specific spirits of the dead, or they may be contacted, apparently unbidden, by some unknown force that wishes to communicate. Although this sounds completely crazy to modern society, it wasn't like that in ancient times. On every continent, every ancient culture knew about this ability, and every religion had some sort of priest or shamans which specialized in channeling, mediumship, and communicating with the divine. From the Native American shamans, famous for their trance shamanic states, to the Egyptian priests, the Celtic druids, and the steppe followers of Tangri, all of them used channeling to communicate with the spirits. The persecution of this lost knowledge came only after the rise of monotheistic religions such as Christianity and Islam, although cases of channeling, especially communicating with God, angels, and spirit beings, can also be found in these two religions, precisely by the prophets who communicated with these higher dimensional beings. Humans can only perceive up to 3 dimensions, but we can theorize how a possible 4th or 5th dimensional world might act. For example, if we take a piece of paper and draw a human, the human we drew is in the 2nd dimension. We can see this 2-dimensional world and we can see this human living in the 2nd dimension. But if he was alive, and by the way, scientists say that life in a 2-dimensional universe is possible, he wouldn't be able to see us because we are in the higher 3rd dimension, which is imperceivable to him, the same way the 4th dimension is imperceivable to us. If we were to place our finger on the piece of paper, we would be interacting with the 2nd dimension from our 3rd dimension, and the human would be able to see a sliver of our finger. This is because in a 2-dimensional world, you can only go forward and backward or side to side. There is no depth there. If there are beings living in a 4th dimensional world, they would be able to see and perceive much more than what we are currently experiencing in our 3rd dimensional reality. A being from the 4th dimension would have access to information and knowledge far exceeding our understandings. Considering all dimensions are intertwined with one another, it's scientifically possible for a 3rd dimensional being to establish some kind of connection with a 4th dimensional entity. Apparently, Thoth, through his meditative trance states of consciousness, established this connection and transformed all the knowledge he acquired in writing. It's been said he wrote thousands of books. To the Egyptians, his knowledge was so vast that they began to credit him as the communicator with the gods, and the topics he uncovered ranged from medicine, chemistry, law, art, music, rhetoric, philosophy, geography, and much more, and these were only the earthly aspects he acquired. There are many practices, rituals, and esoteric abilities written in the Book of Thoth, which we today would call paranormal or simply magical. Some of them were the supposed abilities to communicate with animals and even telepathically affect them. The pharaohs also used the Book of Thoth to establish power over animals and humans. It's been said that the mysterious book holds secrets of controlling the natural yet unknown functions of our bodies. No wonder the most famous Egyptian symbol, the Eye of Horus, also known as Wadjet, is secretly depicting the structure of the human brain with the pineal gland at its center. The pineal gland is the most mysterious organ in the endocrine system. The pineal gland is also called the epicenter of enlightenment, the seat of the soul, or the third eye. This tiny pea-sized gland is shaped like a little pine cone, and it's residing in the center of our brain. It is sensitive to light and produces the hormone melatonin, which influences the sleep cycles. One of the most incredible functions of the pineal gland is that it releases N,N-dimethyltryptamine, better known as DMT. DMT is also called the spirit molecule, and it's considered by many to be among the most powerful psychedelics that we can experience. People who have used DMT report mystical visions that are often far stronger than with other psychedelics. They feel that they had been taken to alternate realities, interacted with sentient interdimensional beings, and had their entire worldview changed by visceral experiences that seemed more real than their daily life. To simplify it, the pineal gland can produce the molecule which can transcend our consciousness into the higher dimensions and connect us to the divine oneness of the universe. When we sleep, the pineal gland produces small amounts of DMT, which is the driving force behind our dreams. What is even more astonishing is that during death, the pineal gland floods the brain with a huge dose of DMT, which helps our consciousness leave the body and rejoin the spiritual world. According to many ancient and modern sources, the pineal gland, or the third eye, may hold a secrets to spiritual wisdom, inspiration, and psychic awareness. Utilizing its powers could be vital for the physical, mental, and spiritual health, while also being a gateway to higher consciousness. The pineal gland has been a subject of much interest since ancient times. Galen described it in the 3rd century, and the philosopher René Descartes identified the pineal gland as the seat of the soul. His explanation for this conclusion is quite interesting. My view is that this gland is the principal seat of the soul and the place in which all our thoughts are formed. The reason I believe this is that I cannot find any part of the brain except this, which is not double. Since we see only one thing with 2 eyes, and hear only one voice with 2 ears, and in short have never more than one thought at a time, it must necessarily be the case that the impressions which enter by the 2 eyes or by the 2 ears and so on unite with each other in some part of the body before being considered by the soul. Now it is impossible to find any such place in the whole head except this gland. Moreover, it is situated in the most suitable possible place for this purpose, in the middle of all the concavities, and it is supported and surrounded by the little branches of the carotid arteries which bring the spirits into the brain. Descartes was one of the few philosophers who was experienced in vivisection and anatomy, and who rightly pointed out the unique nature of the pineal gland's location in the brain. It is widely believed that the pineal gland is the key to our spiritual awakening and psychic abilities. Traditionally, the pineal gland is said to be the 3rd eye chakra, otherwise known as the Ajna chakra, which is set back and between our 2 physical eyes. Almost every ancient civilization knew about the pineal gland, and we can clearly see that in their symbolism. The pine cone has served as a symbolic representation of human enlightenment, the 3rd eye, and the pineal gland, and it can be seen everywhere throughout the world. Beginning with one of the oldest civilizations on our planet, the ancient Sumerians, we can see many references to the pineal gland. They depicted the Anunnaki gods holding a pine cone in almost all their depictions. In this particular depiction, we can see an Anunnaki being holding a pine cone and using it to influence a stylized tree, which curiously resembles the DNA strand very clearly, and we all know the DNA strand was discovered thousands of years later in the 19th century. In ancient Egypt, the most prominent symbol, the Eye of Horus, can be directly used as a map of our brain. It bears an uncanny resemblance to the center of our brain and, of course, the pineal gland. The uraeus, or serpent crown, shown on Egyptian and Nubian royalty is also considered a 3rd eye reference, and it's a symbol of wisdom, power, and protection. Richard Casaro, a Madrid-based author, lecturer, and documentary filmmaker, also discovered the prominent role the 3rd eye had in the ancient Egyptian culture. He discovered many depictions of the 3rd eye, especially in the Aten symbol. He said, "The Aten stands for the awakened 3rd eye that sees the soul within, or sun within, which soul or sun is really the higher self or divine spark within us. The Aten is thus a symbol of both the 3rd eye and the soul within that the awakened 3rd eye sees." Richard Casaro discovered the striking similarity between the Aten symbol and the bindi in Hinduism, which is the point or dot depicted on the forehead. The bindu is associated with Ajna chakra, or the 3rd eye chakra. This ancient 3rd eye symbol can be found not only in Hinduism, but also in Buddhism and Taoism. Even more astonishing is the fact that 3rd eye symbols are also present in the New World religions of the ancient Maya, Aztec, Toltec, Olmec, Inca, and pre-Inca cultures, as discovered by Casaro. According to him, There is a long history of the third eye in the so-called occult tradition or Hermetic tradition, and this tradition teaches that during a long ago golden age, thousands of years before the first known civilizations, our ancestors had a physical third eye in the center of their foreheads. As humans evolved, this third eye atrophied, becoming the modern pineal gland, located precisely in the geometric center of the human brain. Curiously, scientific evidence supports the possibility that our third eye, or pineal, was once our first eye. Under the microscope, the pineal is made up of cells that have the same features as the rod-shaped light-sensitive cells found in our retinas. The pineal receives signals that travel down the optic nerves, just as our physical eyes do. It seems the primitive third eye once functioned as a sight organ before our current set of eyes, just as the ancient civilizations described. Today, the third eye organ no longer works in our daily lives and must be intentionally awakened or activated. Every human being's pineal gland or third eye can be activated to spiritual world frequencies, which can enable you to access the higher dimensions of consciousness and have the sense of all-knowing God-like euphoria and oneness all around you. If the pineal gland is tuned into proper frequencies with the help of deep meditation or various other spiritual and esoteric practices, a person will be able to have out-of-body experiences, popularly known as astral travel or astral projection. With more advanced practices and ancient methods, it is also possible to influence and feel the thoughts and actions of people in the physical world. Cultivating the power of the third eye is the doorway to incredible powers such as telepathy, clairvoyance, lucid dreaming, aura viewing, and even minor benefits such as improved quality of sleep and enhanced imagination. The illusion of separation between self and spirit dissolves when the third eye connection is cultivated. When you open your third eye, you'll receive access to the higher dimensions. You'll be able to awake within the dream, to walk between realities, and to surpass the limitations of humanity. If your third eye is blocked, however, it can lead to confusion, uncertainty, cynicism, jealousy, and any other low-frequency emotions. Through an open and vibrant third eye, the highest source of ethereal energy may enter. While the physical eyes perceive the physical world, the third eye sees the true world, a unified whole with an unyielding connection to spirit. If you want to be healthy at the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual level, you need to learn how to access high-frequency energy through activating your pineal gland. This type of healing energy is essential for health because it raises the frequency of your body and soul. When you surround yourself with high-frequency energy, your health improves. On the other hand, when you surround yourself with low-frequency energy, your health deteriorates. According to some frequency researchers, a healthy human body's frequency rates are between 62 and 78 megahertz. Any frequency below 62 megahertz will make the human body vulnerable to illness and disease. The lower the frequency rate, the more susceptible the human body is to illness and disease. Once the frequency rate of the human body reaches 25 megahertz, the risk of death increases dramatically. After all this incredible information shared, you may be wondering if everyone has a pineal gland, which gives these incredible powers and benefits, why are we all surrounded by miserable people, suffering to survive, working as slaves without even questioning the system? This mind enslavement of our society is mainly caused by the fact that most people's pineal glands are completely calcified, and that pineal gland calcification is intentionally and systematically enforced by our governments. But let's get back to the Book of Thoth. The Book of Thoth is around 20,000 years old, and the first historical record mentioning it can be found written in the Taurus Papyrus, an ancient manuscript listing the names of the Egyptian pharaohs. This ancient papyrus describes how an assassination attempt was made on the life of the pharaoh using dark magic from the Book of Thoth. Magic was something completely natural in the daily life of the ancient Egyptians. The proper definition of magic is simply science we don't understand yet. Heka, the magic of the ancient Egyptians, was not a parlor trick or illusion. It was the harnessing of the powers of natural laws in order to achieve a certain goal. To the Egyptians, a world without magic was inconceivable. Almost everyone wore amulets to protect themselves from dark magic, and the amulets created in those times stayed in use until approximately the 5th century AD, and were revived again in modern times. Heka magic continues to be one of the most mysterious and fascinating magical practices in the world. Magic wasn't the only thing the Book of Thoth offered. It also included detailed information about lost and forgotten ancient civilizations and the real history and origins of the human race. Legend says that that person who read the substance of the book would receive knowledge of parallel realities and the plethora of dimensions and energies that we are connected to. When you look at the gated tools in the Book of Thoth, your soul will understand the codes and guide your consciousness to the various dimensions that are outlined in the gates provided. It will give your consciousness access to very desirable dimensions that it needs to evolve. Soul evolution is more than reading books, meditating, and eating right. It involves the coordinated practice of placing your consciousness in higher and higher states that ultimately raise it to the point that it can no longer incarnate on lower dimensions. The Book of Thoth gives you a chance to do so. No one knows where the Book of Thoth is located now, or if it's even real, but there's an old legend which was told even during the Ptolemaic Egyptian period. The legend suggests that the book was originally hidden at the bottom of the Nile near Coptos, where it was locked inside a series of silver and gold boxes and guarded by serpents. The brave Egyptian prince Neferkapta, who was the son of the pharaoh, decided to recover it. He fought the serpents and succeeded retrieving it, but in punishment for his theft from Thoth, his wife Alwere and his son Merab died. Neferkapta eventually committed suicide and was said to have been entombed along with the book, and his tomb sealed for eternity. We cannot know for sure whether the book was real or not, but people never stopped searching for it to this day. In fact, there were harsh persecutions for those searching the secrets of the Book of Thoth during medieval times. The Spanish Inquisition was especially grim. It was enough only to speak of the Book of Thoth, and merciless sentence would follow. Many who sought to find it were brutally executed. The Book of Thoth has been lost for thousands of years from this world, but if we one day find it, perhaps it would help us grow into higher, more evolved beings. Of all the mysterious artifacts and ancient myths which permeate human history, many of which we've spoken about on this channel, there is one which perhaps stands out above the rest, one which connects Egyptian pharaohs and Greek conquerors, well-known philosophers, and some of the greatest scientific minds of all time. It is called the Emerald Tablet, and for thousands of years, it has been known as a source of secret knowledge about the universe, magical powers, and perhaps even a record of the fabled lost city of Atlantis. It was said to be the place where Thoth recorded the greatest secrets of all, the secrets to changing a person's existence and becoming one with the universe. During the most ancient days of Egyptian civilization, the Emerald Tablet and the rest of Thoth's works were said to have been kept hidden away by an ancient priesthood, accessible to only the highest level of initiates. What became of these works as time passed is unclear. Some say that as new dynasties emerged and Egypt moved into the pharaonic era, the old priesthood lost authority and were driven from Egypt, taking Thoth's works with them and continuing to guard the knowledge at some secret location to this very day. Others say that when Thoth left the earth, he hid his works away so that no human might find them, and only he, upon his return, could recover them. Others simply thought that a changing Egypt meant the knowledge was lost forever. In any case, as Egypt began to move through the pharaonic dynasties, the works of Thoth stood somewhere in the background, a story from a distant past, gone, but not forgotten. That was until the appearance of a pharaoh called Akhenaten, who rose to power in the mid-14th century BCE. Originally known as Amenhotep, the pharaoh was well versed in the story of Thoth, and upon his rise to power, he immediately set about searching for the lost works. According to legend, he was able to find them, including the Emerald Tablet, and what he learned totally changed his life, his reign, and Egypt altogether. At once, he began to challenge the Egyptian priesthood and their pantheon of gods and goddesses, founding a new monotheistic religion which presented the sun as the one thing, the source of all creation and power. It was here that he changed his name from Amenhotep to Akhenaten, which meant he who serves the one thing. As Akhenaten, he flipped Egyptian culture on its head, rejecting the long-standing rituals of the priesthood and instead promoting the concept of living in truth in accordance with natural cosmic law. He encouraged new, more exciting art, raised the status of women across Egypt, and even abandoned the traditional capital of Thebes and established a new capital known as Akhetaten. Unsurprisingly, these dramatic changes infuriated the existing power structure, and after 17 years of rule, Akhenaten mysteriously disappeared, widely thought to have been assassinated by the priesthood. His remains were never found. After his disappearance, the new pharaoh, with the support of the priesthood, immediately moved to set things back to the way they had been, destroying Akhenaten's capital and all records of his new way. Again, Thoth's work was lost, disappeared as the powers that besought to remove all traces of Akhenaten. Yet, though the works of Thoth were again lost, the story was not. In fact, it began to weave itself into numerous other traditions around the region and across the known world. The Israelites, for one, became aware of the story of Thoth during their captivity in Egypt and incorporated it into their own religious beliefs. Some religious cults began to assert that Thoth was actually the biblical Seth, the third son of Adam and Eve, and that he had written the Emerald Tablet to show humankind how to redeem itself from the sins of his parents in the Garden of Eden. According to this thinking, some believed that the tablet had made its way down through generations to Noah, who took it on his ark before hiding it in a cave after the Great Flood, while others insisted that the tablet had been given to Miriam, the daughter of Moses, who placed it within the mythical Ark of the Covenant. Elsewhere, other religious cults asserted that Thoth was not Seth, but Enoch, the biblical great-grandfather of Noah and the author of the mysterious Book of Enoch. According to this book, Enoch was a messenger between gods and humanity, a clear overlap with the mythical Thoth. Regardless, as the legend grew and spread, there was no still sign of the lost work of Thoth or his legendary Emerald Tablet. That was until the 4th century BCE, when the greatest conqueror in human history arrived in Egypt. Having absorbed Egypt into his growing Greek empire and named himself Pharaoh in 332 BCE, Alexander became obsessed with finding the lost work of Thoth, believing the Emerald Tablet to contain the secrets which would turn a man into a god. Upon discovering the precise location of Thoth's tomb where the Emerald Tablet was believed to be preserved, Alexander promptly embarked on a journey across the Libyan desert, heading towards Siwa. It was within this temple that Alexander came into possession of the Emerald Tablet. Taking hold of the tablet and the accompanying scrolls, he proceeded to Heliopolis, where he deposited the scrolls within the revered archives of the place. Subsequently, Alexander took it upon himself to delineate the boundaries of the burgeoning city of Alexandria. This city would soon be home to a grand library established with the purpose of housing and meticulously studying the valuable texts. Of course, Alexander did not stay forever in Egypt. In 327 BCE, he took his army and moved on, continuing his conquests in India. After returning from his campaign, Alexander mysteriously died, and the cause of his death remains unknown to this day. Like the tomb of the pharaoh Akhenaten and his wife Nefertiti, the tomb of Alexander was also never discovered. But what happened to the works of Thoth and the Emerald Tablet? Were they hidden in the tomb of Alexander? Or were they placed somewhere else, waiting for us to discover them? Regardless of where these works disappeared to, what did not disappear after the death of Alexander was the Greek interest in Thoth. In fact, the Greeks began to consider Thoth so legendary that they incorporated him into their own pantheon of gods, equating him with the existing god Hermes. That Thoth and Hermes were one and the same made sense for the Greeks. Both were said to be messengers of the gods and espousers of learning, patrons of writing and words. Thus, Thoth and Hermes began to be worshipped as one, with the Greeks even going so far as to rename the Egyptian city of Khmenu, where the temple of Thoth was located, Hermopolis, the city of Hermes. Slowly, as the centuries passed, the Greeks lost power and were replaced by the Roman Empire. As this happened, the Romans began to take the legend of Thoth and its overlap with Hermes even further. Important Roman thinkers began to wonder if perhaps Thoth had not been a god at all, but a man, a prophet sometime deep in the past, one with such wisdom that he became a god in the Egyptian pantheon. Many believe this to be the case, even giving the prophet a name, Hermes Trismegistus, the honorary Trismegistus, meaning thrice greatest, added to differentiate this man from the god Hermes. As the years passed, the legend of Hermes Trismegistus grew. Some began to assert that he was a contemporary of Moses, while others believed that he was the father of philosophy, his work influencing thinkers like Plato and Pythagoras. Over time, it became accepted that Hermes Trismegistus had been a prophet hovering between the divine and the human world, receiving and recording divine revelation sometime in the past. Just as the story of Thoth described, it was believed that Hermes Trismegistus had written down all the knowledge he had received in these revelations into a series of manuscripts, including an emerald tablet. In short order, writing began to appear across the Roman Empire, which was attributed to Hermes Trismegistus. This included a series of works collectively known as the Hermetica, which covered philosophical and theological matters, as well as the mystical arts of alchemy and theurgy. Whether or not works like the Hermetica were genuinely from an ancient author named Hermes Trismegistus was unclear. Could they have been copies of the works allegedly discovered by Alexander the Great and Pharaoh Akhenaten, long hidden away and revealed as popular acceptance was gained? As the alleged writings of Hermes Trismegistus became popular across the Roman Empire, one who took a particular interest in them was a man known as Apollonius of Tyana. Born sometime in the 1st century CE, he was first exposed to the writings as a young man and was so enamored by them that he made a decision to set out in search of the works still lost, including the legendary Emerald Tablet. According to historical records, this search brought him to a remote temple hidden away in the mountains. There, he met an oracle who told him that the answers he sought were located under a statue of Hermes in Tyana. Finding the statue, he noticed that it bore a curious inscription which read, "I am Hermes, the threefold sage. I have erected this sign in public, yet in my wisdom I have veiled it, so that only a sage like myself can find it. Whoever wishes to know the secret of creation and the art of nature should look under my feet." Immediately, Apollonius of Tyana began to dig under the statue, where he found a subterranean passageway descending deep into the earth. As he gazed into the darkness of the passageway, an old man in his own likeness suddenly appeared before him and implored him to create a glass lamp and explore the passageway. Shocked, he asked the old man who he was, to which the old man replied, "I am your perfect nature." Believing that this apparently supernatural event must surely mean he was in the right place, he set out down the passageway with a lamp until, deep in the earth, he reached a chamber. Within this chamber, he was stunned to find a withered skeletal figure sitting on a golden throne. In the hands of this figure was a book and a glowing emerald tablet. This story is not just another story of the alleged discovery of the long-lost emerald tablet like that of Alexander and Akhenaten, but the beginning of a story of one of the era's most enigmatic figures. Throughout writings from the era, both in his own work and the biographical works of others, Apollonius of Tyana is portrayed as a sort of mystic, a kind of magical figure. It is said that after acquiring the emerald tablet and the ancient works of Hermes Trismegistus, Apollonius of Tyana spent the rest of his life traveling across the ancient world, through Greece and Egypt, Persia, North Africa, Europe, and even India. On these travels, he became known for his ability to divine the future in visions and heal the sick, as well as to create magic talismans which protected people from floods, famine, and insects. Were these powers merely myth, or did they have something to do with the knowledge he'd gained from the Emerald Tablet? Predictably, these unusual powers meant that Apollonius of Tyana was often persecuted by the existing power structure, whose authority he challenged. Records exist that he was arrested by Emperor Nero for treason, but the charges magically disappeared from the parchment they were written on in court, forcing his release. Later, he was arrested by Emperor Domitian, but when he entered the courtroom, he descended into a meditative state that swept over everyone present. Domitian became confused and in an entranced voice acquitted him. For his part, Apollonius of Tyana claimed that his unusual powers were the result of knowledge which God reveals to wise men. Did he mean the knowledge that the gods had revealed to Hermes Trismegistus? This question was left unanswered. After his death, opponents, and particularly Christians who believed him to be too much like Jesus, sought to erase Apollonius of Tyana from historical record. By 400 CE, they destroyed nearly everything he'd ever written, and much of what had been written about him, much as the Egyptian priests had done to Akhenaten all those years prior after he too had allegedly discovered the Emerald Tablet. Again, the Emerald Tablet disappeared from history. Some said it was destroyed in the burning of the Library of Alexandria, others that it had been taken by the Knights Templar, and others still that it had been stolen away by the Church and hidden in the Vatican secret archives. If you've seen our comprehensive video on the Vatican secret archives, then this last option may sound eminently possible. There was, however, one major difference between Apollonius of Tyana and other figures who were said to have discovered the Emerald Tablet. While the Emerald Tablet was again lost after his death, its text was not. Apollonius of Tyana had actually written down what it said, and copies of this translation survived even as much of his memory was destroyed. For centuries, these copies were kept hidden away due to stiff opposition to their existence, until a translation finally emerged sometime around the turn of the 8th century CE. It was then that a book called Sir al-Khaliqa Wasan al-Tabayya, or The Secrets of Creation and the Art of Nature, was published, an Arabic text said to be a copy of the original work of Apollonius of Tyana. The book contained a direct translation of the Emerald Tablet, a record for the first time in history, written down for all to see. It read, "'Tis true without lying, certain and most true. That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below to do the miracles of one only thing. And as all things have been and arose from one by the mediation of one, so all things have their birth from this one thing by adaptation. The sun is its father, the moon is its mother, the wind hath carried it in its belly, the earth is its nurse. The father of all perfection in the whole world is here. Its force or power is entire if it be converted into earth. Separate thou the earth from the fire, the subtle from the gross sweetly with great industry. It ascends from the earth to the heaven, and again it descends to the earth, and receives the force of things superior and inferior. By this means you shall have the glory of the whole world, and thereby all obscurity shall fly from you. Its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. So was the world created. From this are and do come admirable adaptations, whereof the means or process is here in this. Hence, I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the three parts of the philosophy of the whole world. That which I have said of the operation of the sun is accomplished and ended. Immediately after it appeared, the text began to make its way around the Arab world, appearing in numerous works and being dissected by the best thinkers of the time. It was not until hundreds of years later, however, that the text would first make its way to Europe, when it was translated into Latin in the 12th century by Hugo of Santalla. But when it was, it lit a spark which would not extinguish for centuries. In the Middle Ages, alchemy began to become popular in Europe as a field of proto-chemistry in which practitioners were focused upon manipulating matter to make magical substances, most famously a substance known as the Philosopher's Stone, which was said to have the ability to transmute base metals into gold. Many of the great thinkers in Europe during the Middle Ages, as well as the Renaissance and Reformation periods, were alchemists, including luminaries known to this day such as famed astronomers Nicholas Copernicus and Johannes Kepler, the great medical pioneer Paracelsus, Robert Boyle, the father of modern chemistry, and even the Holy Roman Emperor Rudolph the Sanctu, among many others. At the heart of their study was the Emerald Tablet, which appeared in numerous translations and near endless commentaries across Europe, its text a regular accessory for anyone thinking about matters of importance. Of course, the actual meaning of the Emerald Tablet was not entirely clear, making it the subject of numerous interpretations and studies to attempt to uncover its true secrets. At first, alchemists believed that the Emerald Tablet must give a coded recipe describing the laboratory process for creating the Philosopher's Stone. By the 15th century, however, mainstream views of the Philosopher's Stone had begun to change, with the belief coming to be that it was not about a literal transformation of base metal into gold, but rather an allegory for a spiritual transformation. The pursuit of the Philosopher's Stone, in effect, the psychological steps an individual must take to reach spiritual realization. In this way, the text of the Emerald Tablet began to be viewed as instructions for reaching this transformation and gaining an understanding of the true nature of the universe. This was why it was so important to so many revolutionary thinkers. But in fact, for one revolutionary thinker, it may have gone much further than that. Today, it is no stretch to say that Isaac Newton was one of the greatest scientists and most revolutionary minds of all time. His seminal 1687 work, Philosophiae Naturalis Principia Mathematica, is one of the most important works in the history of science, laying out the laws of motion and his famous law of gravity. Yet did you know that much of Newton's work had nothing to do with what would be considered mainstream science, and instead was focused on the art of alchemy? It's true. Throughout his life, Newton wrote over 1 million words on alchemy, which for him represented the ancient wisdom which would allow him to unlock all the secrets of natural philosophy. Indeed, the more that Newton's personal records have come out in modern times, the more it has become clear just how deep his alchemical pursuit went. It has been established that he spent years in pursuit of a recipe for the magical philosopher's stone, a pursuit which Newton believed would allow him to, in his words, understand the fire at the heart of the world. He was also extremely interested in the Emerald Tablet, even making his own translation of the text which survives to this day. He believed that the tablet provided a platform for his experimentation, offering an infinite mindscape of potential discoveries. In short, the Isaac Newton we think of today as a Stoic scientist, holed away working on the fundamental laws of motion, was really so much more than that. In fact, when the economist John Maynard Keynes, one of the great minds of the 20th century, purchased a box of Newton's writings in the 1930s, he came to an incredible conclusion. In his words, Newton was not the first scientist of the age of sense. He was instead the last of magicians, the last of Babylonians and Sumerians, the last great mind to have stopped on the world of thought and of the visible with the same eyes of those who began to build our intellectual heritage little less than 10,000 years ago. There was more to Newton's alchemy, though, something far more important and far more groundbreaking than his hunt for the philosopher's stone. The more people have come to understand Isaac Newton the alchemist, the more they have come to realize just how much alchemy and the Emerald Tablet influenced his other scientific pursuits. Take Newton's most famous contribution to science, the law of gravity. The story which is told is that the idea struck him, literally, when he was struck on the head by an apple falling from a tree. However, return to the Emerald Tablet and examine the line. Its force is above all force, for it vanquishes every subtle thing and penetrates every solid thing. Does this not sound exactly like Newton's description of gravity as the force that attracts a body towards the center of the earth or towards any other physical body having mass? Is it possible it was not a falling apple which inspired the theory, but the Emerald Tablet? Many believe so. Go further and look to the line on the Emerald Tablet which proclaims, "Hence I am called Hermes Trismegistus, having the 3 parts of the philosophy of the whole world." Notice the overlap with Newton's 3 physical laws, which together describe the relationship between a body and the forces acting upon it, and its motion in response to these forces. Again, many believe that it was the Emerald Tablet which Newton used as a platform to build this theory. Take a step back and realize what is being said here. Simply, the Emerald Tablet influenced and guided one of the greatest thinkers of all time, helping to form the foundation of modern science. If the legacy of the Emerald Tablet stopped there, that would be enough to make it one of the most important documents in human history. But of course it did not stop there. Since the era of Newton, the Emerald Tablet has continued to be examined and mined for secrets, influencing New Age spiritual movements and modern thinkers. It was in 1925, however, when everything changed, and the legend of the Emerald Tablet was taken to another level. According to a man named Maurice Doreal, there was not one Emerald Tablet, there were 10. Born Claude D. Dodgen in 1902 in rural Oklahoma, it was clear from a young age that the man who would become known as Maurice Doreal was different. At the age of 3, he began to have visions in which he was visited by mysterious entities who spoke with him and revealed their secrets. Moreover, he later wrote that when he started to attend school, he found that he already knew everything was being taught because he had retained the experiences and knowledge of past lives he'd lived. In his words, "When I was born into this life, I had a full and complete memory of my past lives and incarnations, and I never had to study over again the forgotten things that most of us do. I did not have to learn to read and write. I did not have to learn mathematics or physics or chemistry or anything else because in the past I had acquired that knowledge and had retained my attainments of the past." Despite this, he did not do much with his life, bouncing around and working part-time as a landscape gardener into his early 20s. That was until 1925, when Doreal would have a vision that would change his life forever. In this vision, he was told by a mysterious entity to travel to Calcutta, India, and meet a guide who would help him on an important journey. And so he did, traveling and meeting the guide who directed him to Egypt and told him where he could find the legendary lost emerald tablets of Thoth. According to Doreal, they were in possession of a group called the Great White Brotherhood, who had guarded the tablets for countless generations, and indeed, there was not one tablet, but 10. He was shown these tablets, made from a mysterious emerald green substance created by alchemical transmutation and completely imperishable, resistant to the elements, acid, or corrosion. Though he was not allowed to take the tablets with him, he was granted the right to translate them. Returning home with these translations, Doreal would found the Brotherhood of the White Temple, based on the secret knowledge they contained. In 1939, Doreal published a book containing everything he had translated from the tablets. The book was titled The Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean, and as the title suggested, it revealed that the story of Thoth did not start in ancient Egypt, but on the mythical lost continent of Atlantis. Immediately upon publication, the book caused a stir, with many critics asserting that Doreal had made the whole thing up. These critics obtained a copy of his passport which showed he had never traveled to either India or Egypt, seemingly proving their point. To this, Doreal responded that he had not actually traveled to these countries in person, but rather that it was his astral presence which made the journey. Was Doreal's story real, or simply the product of an overactive imagination, or worse, the musings of a con man? To answer this question, we must first look at what the book said, the incredible secrets allegedly obtained by Doreal from the Emerald Tablets of Thoth the Atlantean. According to the book, the mythical continent of Atlantis was founded in the distant past by beings known as the Children of Light. As the book describes, far in a past time lost in the space-time, the Children of Light look down on the world, see the children of men in their bondage, bound by the force that came from beyond. Knew they that only by freedom from bondage could man ever rise from the earth to the sun. Down they descended and created bodies, taking the semblance of men as their own. These children of light lived alongside humans in Atlantis, providing them with advanced knowledge and interbreeding with them. Interestingly, this account sounds not unlike the ancient Sumerian legends of the Anunnaki, who were said to have come to Earth from the sky and helped found the modern human race. According to the book, Thoth was the son of one of these children of light, a high priest who carried messages between humans and the children of light named Thotme. Because of this, Thoth was granted the opportunity early in his life to spend time with the creator of the Atlantean civilization, an entity called the Dweller, where he learned the art of wisdom and the secrets of the great mysteries of the universe. Having done so, Thoth became responsible for recording and keeping the ancient knowledge he'd been taught, much as he was said to have done in the Egyptian myth. His home in Atlantis was said to be made up of 2 islands in the Atlantic Ocean near the Mediterranean Sea. Its inhabitants were a highly developed civilization which possessed true religious and philosophical knowledge. And yet, according to the book, the spiritual culture of Atlantis began to degrade, which Thoth and others knew was destined to bring about a cataclysm. And so, as Atlantis sank into the sea, Thoth and other spiritual masters fled in a flying ship and spread out all over the world. Thoth went to Egypt, bringing his records of secret knowledge and ruling as a king-priest for 10,000 years, helping the Egyptians to build an advanced civilization and becoming, in the process, remembered as a god in the Egyptian pantheon. Others like him went elsewhere, to South and Central America, India, and beyond, in each case bringing their secret knowledge and helping to found and develop the world's ancient civilizations. But what was the secret knowledge which Thoth and other Atlanteans brought around the world? Dorial's book asserts that all is recorded in the Emerald Tablets. The book speaks of the wisdom which forms the basis for our entire existence, of nature, the cosmos, and the divine. It speaks about reincarnation and immortality, of advanced technology, the ability to generate energy and manipulate matter, and the magical secrets which form the precepts of alchemy. In fact, the book even asserts that it leaves out information found on the final 2 tablets, which was so mind-blowing that Dorial was instructed by the keepers of the tablets not to release the information into the world. Of course, like the Emerald Tablet of Isaac Newton and Apollonius of Tyana, Dorial's alleged translation is written cryptically, in a manner which opens room for different meanings and interpretations, different recipes for what the secret wisdom prescribes. Is it all just nonsense, or does it really reveal the secrets of the universe? Some would suggest that if it's still around nearly 100 years later, it must be saying something. Is it really possible that the mythical continent of Atlantis existed, and that a record of this existence and the continent's demise is recorded in the work of Dorial? If so, who were the children of light who founded it? Could Dorial's story be further evidence of ancient extraterrestrial visitors who helped found the human race? And could humanity's ancient civilizations really have been influenced and helped by the survivors of a much older advanced ancient civilization? Or maybe Dorial just made it all up. But even if he did, what we can definitively say about Thoth and his secret knowledge is this. The original Emerald Tablet, which was so important to so many ancient traditions, has undoubtedly changed the course of history through its influence on Isaac Newton and others, expanding the minds of some of the greatest thinkers and figures who have ever lived. If in fact Dorial's story is true, this only adds to the legend. Just as the Emerald Tablet was long lost and thought to be a myth for many years, if we were to find the tablets Dorial allegedly translated sometime in the future, imagine how might it change our understanding of human history, of the world, of everything. Was Tesla also one of the few who accessed this knowledge? Many of Tesla's most astounding insights seem to come from this state of attunement. He described moments of illumination when entire inventions appeared before his eyes in complete detail, with all proportions, mechanisms, and components visible as if projected holographically in space. He could rotate these mental images, disassemble and reassemble them, and observe how they functioned under stress, all within his mind. Decades before the invention of computer simulations, Tesla used pure mental visualization to test and perfect his devices. He claimed that his inventions rarely required prototypes because he had already refined them in the realm of thought, which he considered just as real as the physical world. Tesla's biographers often struggled to categorize him. Was he a scientist, mystic, or prophet? In truth, he was all three. He operated at the intersection of material science and metaphysical awareness, guided by intuition as much as by mathematics. The precision of his engineering coexisted with a profound spiritual belief that everything in existence was interconnected by vibration. He was fascinated by Eastern philosophy and once remarked that Buddhism and Hinduism contained truths about energy and consciousness that Western science had yet to understand. In many ways, his work represented an attempt to unite these worlds, to express spiritual principles through technology. Experiments in modern physics and biology continue to echo Tesla's insights. For example, studies on quantum coherence show that subatomic particles can become entangled, resonating across vast distances instantaneously, as if connected through a hidden field. Similarly, experiments in biophysics demonstrate that living cells communicate through electromagnetic frequencies, coordinating their functions through resonance. The research of Fritz Albert Popp on biophotons, weak light emissions from living tissue, suggests that cells use light frequencies to regulate biological processes. Tesla predicted this in the early 1900s when he claimed that all organisms are light beings whose vitality depends on the harmony of their electrical vibrations. One particularly striking modern experiment that supports Tesla's ideas comes from the work of the Japanese researcher Masaru Emoto, who studied how thoughts and emotions affect water molecules. By exposing water to words, music, or intentions, and then freezing it, Emoto found that harmonious vibrations, such as loving words or classical music, produced beautifully symmetrical crystalline patterns, while negative vibrations created distorted and chaotic forms. Everything, from molecules to emotions, resonates within the universal field, shaping the physical world through frequency. But there was another man who, much like Tesla, accessed the hidden cosmic consciousness from the Akashic records. In January of 1913, famed British mathematician Godfrey Harold Hardy received an unusual letter in the mail. It began, "Dear Sir, I beg to introduce myself to you as a clerk in the accounts department of the Port Trust Office at Madras on a salary of only £20 per annum." It then presented seemingly outrageous claims that its author had made startling progress on a theory of divergent series in mathematics and had solved a well-established problem of the distribution of prime numbers. As a prominent mathematician, it was not rare for Hardy to receive letters from fanatics and crackpots making ridiculous claims and wild assertions. At first glance, this appeared to fit the bill. Yet, as Hardy began to look more closely, he quickly realized that this letter was something completely different. Over 10 pages, the letter contained 120 advanced mathematical theorems. Some, Hardy realized, seemed to be independent rediscoveries of concepts already proven, while others appeared entirely groundbreaking, baffling even the great Hardy. After showing the letter to his colleague John Edensor Littlewood, Hardy concluded the results must be true because, if they were not true, no one would have had the imagination to invent them. Immediately, he surmised the letter must have been written by a mathematician of the highest ability, some sort of genius like Euler or Jacobi. Only one question remained. Who was this mystery man, this Indian clerk making £20 a year? How was it possible that this total unknown had reached and even surpassed the greatest mathematical minds in the world? On December 22, 1887, a child was born in Madras, India, one of many in a country of nearly 300 million people at the time. He was given the name Ramanujan, meaning the brother of Rama, a Hindu deity. But this was not just any child. Before he hit puberty, Srinivasa Ramanujan had become a mathematical prodigy almost totally by accident. By the age of 11, he had exhausted and surpassed the knowledge of 2 college students who happened to be boarding with his family. At 13, he mastered advanced trigonometry without a teacher, learning from a borrowed book, and began creating his own theorems. At 16, he stumbled across George Shoebridge Carr's seminal work, A Synopsis of Elementary Results in Pure and Applied Mathematics, and began to work through its 5,000 theorems. The next year, Ramanujan independently developed and investigated the Bernoulli numbers and calculated the Euler-Mascheroni constant to 15 decimal places, completing as a teenager and, without mentorship, what the world's greatest mathematical minds had painstakingly accomplished over centuries. His peers and schoolmates said they rarely understood him and that they simply stood in respectful awe. The headmaster of his school, while presenting him with a mathematics award, said Ramanujan deserved a score higher than the maximum. In recognition of his obvious ability, Ramanujan received a scholarship when he completed high school to study at the prestigious Government Arts College in Kumbakonam. But once there, he could focus on nothing but math, failing most of his other courses and losing his scholarship. He would leave school, then return, then leave again, before taking a job as a low-level government clerk. Through it all, he pursued independent mathematical research at every opportunity, often living in poverty and on the brink of starvation, sustained only by his brilliance. It may have been that this was where the story of Ramanujan ended, unknown and undiscovered in some dusty office buried under a clerk's minutiae. But everything changed with the letter he wrote in 1913 to G.H. Hardy. Hardy, having rescued Ramanujan's letter from the literal and figurative dustbin of history, was open-minded enough to recognize he had discovered something incredible. In a burst of excitement that comes when the proficient recognize virtuosity, he immediately set about attempting to bring Ramanujan to England to join him at the University of Cambridge. After some initial hesitation, Ramanujan agreed and set out on the arduous journey through the Suez Canal, from the jewel of empire to its heart. Upon arrival, he amazed Hardy with his natural ability. Here was an untrained mathematician with an eccentric style nobody had ever seen before, and a talent that felt limitless. Through their collaboration, Hardy provided the training Ramanujan had previously lacked, metaphorically polishing the diamond as best he could. Soon, Ramanujan was astounding seasoned mathematicians with theorems that had gone unsolved for centuries and ideas never before considered. In short order, he became an almost mythical figure in the math community, a sensation with seemingly impossible ability. He was named one of the youngest ever Fellows of the Royal Society at 31, then became the first Indian ever elected a Fellow of Trinity College. The child prodigy had become a phenomenon as an adult. Then, as quickly as he came, he was gone. At the conclusion of World War I, suffering from ill health brought about by wartime deprivation on his vegetarian diet, Ramanujan returned home to India. Shortly thereafter, he died at the age of 32. Years after his death, Hardy was asked to rate prominent mathematicians on the basis of pure talent using a scale of 1 to 100. He gave himself a 25, Littlewood a 30, and the great German mathematician David Hilbert an 80. To Ramanujan, he gave a 100. Having worked closer than anyone with Ramanujan, Hardy memorialized his genius with the following words: "He combined a power of generalization, a feeling for form, and a capacity for rapid modification of his hypotheses that were often really startling and made him, in his own peculiar field, without a rival in his day. The limitations of his knowledge were as startling as its profundity. Here was a man who could work out modular equations and theorems to orders unheard of, whose mastery of continued fractions was beyond that of any mathematician in the world, who had found for himself the functional equation of the zeta function and the dominant terms of many of the most famous problems in the analytic theory of numbers. And yet, he had never heard of a doubly periodic function or of Cauchy's theorem, and had indeed but the vaguest idea of what a function of a complex variable was." In short, Ramanujan was able to surpass even the greatest mathematicians while lacking knowledge of the basic tools they employed. He did not build his work on the work of others but seemed to invent it for himself. All told, Ramanujan compiled nearly 3,900 mathematical results during his lifetime. Since his death, nearly all of his claims have been proved correct, opening entirely new areas of study and inspiring further research. His influence became so prominent that the Ramanujan Journal was created as a scientific publication devoted solely to mathematics influenced by his work. As decades passed, something even more mind-blowing emerged, another layer to the legend of Ramanujan. As science and math evolved, his formulas became relevant to new fields such as computer science, electrical engineering, and the study of black holes. Consider that in his time, nobody knew black holes were even something to study, yet Ramanujan had already developed a formula that would describe their properties generations later. Mathematician Ken Ono of Emory University said, "Ramanujan's formulas have offered glimpses of theories that Ramanujan probably wouldn't have been able to articulate himself, theories that nobody needed until they needed them." How is this possible? How could Ramanujan have known about things that did not yet exist? How was he able to provide insights so far beyond what was understood in his time? Ono said, "It is inconceivable he had this intuition, but he must have." While mathematician Freeman Dyson of Princeton's Institute for Advanced Study remarked that Ramanujan had some sort of magic tricks that we don't understand. Perhaps Dyson was onto something. Perhaps there was indeed a factor at work beyond logic, not magic, but something else. Ramanujan was a deeply religious Hindu who often credited his mathematical insights to his family goddess, Namagiri, saying, "An equation for me has no meaning unless it represents a thought of God." He described dreaming of blood drops, symbols of the goddess, and how, after these dreams, he would see visions of complex mathematical formulas unfolding before him. It may sound unbelievable or like eccentricity, but this experience is not unique among history's great thinkers. Russian chemist Dmitry Mendeleev, creator of the periodic table, said the complete layout of the elements came to him in a dream. Albert Einstein conceived his theory of relativity during one of his thought experiments while sitting in quiet meditation. Across centuries, humanity's greatest innovators have described receiving ideas from somewhere beyond, inspiration seemingly pulled from thin air. But perhaps there is an explanation, one that transcends coincidence. That explanation is the Akashic records. Some even cite Revelation 20:12 in Christian scripture, which speaks of the books of life as a parallel to this concept. Perhaps when Ramanujan received his visions of mathematical scrolls, or when Mendeleev dreamed the periodic table, or when Einstein imagined the relativity of time, they were all accessing this cosmic library of information. Even Nikola Tesla spoke of this unseen realm. In Man's Greatest Achievement, 1907, Tesla wrote, "All perceptible matter comes from a primary substance, or tenuity beyond conception, filling all space, the Akasha or luminiferous ether, which is acted upon by the life-giving prana or creative force, calling into existence in never-ending cycles all things and phenomena." Could this explain how certain individuals seem far ahead of their time? Could they be tuning into the Akashic records, where all human experience and innovation is stored? It might also explain child prodigies like Mozart, who composed symphonies beyond his years, or why groundbreaking inventions like the telephone, airplane, and theory of evolution were developed independently by multiple people at nearly the same moment in history. Perhaps these individuals were all accessing the same universal source, the eternal library of consciousness. For Ramanujan, this raises an even greater question. Each year, new discoveries reveal that his work still holds secrets relevant to cutting-edge science, from quantum physics to black hole theory. Some even speculate that his formulas may one day hold keys to time travel, anti-gravity, or limitless energy. If Ramanujan did indeed access the Akashic records, how much did he truly see? What knowledge might he have left behind, waiting for humanity to rediscover it when the time is right?